Are you someone who likes your job but feels you deserve a raise? Well, keep listening as we drop some gems on how you can upgrade your work contract before it auto renews at the end of the fiscal year. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Alicia Taylor.
And I'm Dr. Brittany Halford.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time.
It's that time of year where residents are graduating, Leisha. And one of the things that I remember doing this time of year is getting my own disability insurance policy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's so crazy because I don't know about you, Brittany, but it wasn't something I wanted to buy. It was just something that I knew that I needed. One of the most important things that we should do as doctors is secure our income. And so we need to make sure that our high income as physicians is protected.
Yeah, and most physicians forget this step. They think that they're going to an employer that offers disability insurance, so they don't need their own independent policy. But let me tell you, no one cares more about your money than you do.
And oftentimes residents have access to these guaranteed standard issue policies or special rates and discounts that other people, even outside of training, cannot get. And so you want to make sure that you're going to somebody who can get you the lowest rates possible, as well as getting a tailored policy customized to fit your needs.
And Leisha, I found that PKA Insurance Group, Pradeep Auto, and Matthew Peterson, who are independent brokers and focus on disability and life insurance, have provided exceptional customer service to ensure that your policy is customized. They look through every single thing, and I really appreciated that there was no lapse in communication. They would allow me to ask questions and provided me with options from different carriers, and were really focused on what I needed.
Yeah, and they were efficient, honey, because look, I am busy. I do not have time to sit on the phone and do 20 Zoom calls. And so one of the things I really like is that if you're healthy with limited to no medical issues, approval is likely in 5 minutes.
Yes, there are discounts, as you mentioned, on disability coverage, and they can range from 10 to 40%, depending on your situation. So if you are someone who's not gotten their own independent disability insurance policy, then please reach out to PKA Insurance Group to discuss your disability or life insurance needs today.
Yep, and that's www.pkainsurance.com or call 1-800-258-1018, or you can email info@pkainsurance.com. Are you someone who is graduating residency, or maybe you already have your attending job and you are looking for more money? You know you need a raise, you know you want a raise, and now is the time to get that raise, all right? Most people are submitting their budgets for the new fiscal year around this time, and guess what? We've got you covered.
We have our accelerator, Negotiate Like a Boss, that will teach you step by step what you need to do to get to your desired salary, have the time, flexibility, and the schedule that you desire.
Yep. So you get access to our framework. We're going to give you the skills you need and equip you with the confidence in order to get that raise. And so if this is something that you are interested in, click the link in the show notes to sign up on the waitlist, or email us at wealthmindedmd@gmail.com.
All right, Alicia, as we're recording this, it is Boston Marathon Day. And I don't know about you, but whenever there's something big going on in the city, it impacts my life, how I navigate the roads, the schedule. Like, do I go to the grocery store today? Do I need to run these errands today? How are things in Atlanta? Any big events that are complicating your life in your city?
That's a really good question. Not that I'm aware of right now, although I'm sure I probably live under a rock. And there's all sorts of really cool things happening, but I don't anticipate worsening traffic today when I drive into work. But in terms of what's happening in my life, I am getting a ton of emails. They're actually from my residents. This is the time of the year where a lot of them are signing their work contracts. Ideally, people would have chosen their jobs way before this time, but sometimes people are holding out for various reasons. Sometimes they want to finish their boards. Our family medicine boards are around this time, and so some people like to kind of focus on the boards and then sign the contracts. Some people are still figuring out what they really want in their first job as an attending. But inevitably, I start usually around this time of the year, I get a lot of emails from my current residents, from prior residents about ways that they can enhance their work contracts. A lot of them have email or have interviewed for jobs and thankfully gotten really good offers. And usually they will send me their offer letters or their contracts and say, Dr. Taylor, can you take a look at this? What do you think I should do? So that's what I've been doing. I was looking at a work contract the other day and I was thinking to myself, man, we're paying these residents a lot. It's so interesting because looking at contracts from year to year really helps me keep tabs on the market. What are new grads earning these days? So I think for a lot of attending physicians, you may not get a raise every year. And so you may not be aware of how the market has changed. But usually when organizations and companies are hiring new people, they tend to give them market rate. And so doing this work gives me a chance to kind of see what market rate is. And I've been pleasantly surprised at what that is.
So, one, I just want to say thank you for doing that on your free time, girl. They're not paying you a single dime. That is some altruism there, Dr. Alicia Taylor. And it is really interesting. I had a conversation with a resident who was applying to our program where I work about negotiation, and how much she was going to ask for. And so I'm curious because when you work in academics, they typically say, oh, we can't offer this rate or we can't adjust the salary because of these reasons. And maybe this is going to take us to some other things that we'll talk about later in this episode. But I'm just curious on that initial email, like how do you guide them to overcome some of those objections that they might face? Or do they come to you with those objectors to say, hey, I tried to do this and this is what they said?
It depends on the person. I will say most of them come to me initially. So they've interviewed for the job, they've done the things that they needed to do in order to get the offer, and then they've got a first offer. And they've heard me harp on them too many times and saying, don't accept the first offer, don't accept the first offer. And so then that's usually when I get the email. Dr. Taylor, you told me not to accept the first offer. To me, this seems good. What do you think? And I will say, because I work at an academic institution, I want my residents to do well. I do this for them. Everybody else, though, I don't do it for free. But for them, I have a vetted interest in wanting to see the residents that I work with at my program do well, get good jobs, and be satisfied in their careers. I think that helps to fuel me. I mean, I want everybody to be satisfied in their careers, and I want to help as many physicians as I can, but especially the residents that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And so they will email me and usually say, this is the first offer. What do you think? Right? They want my initial thoughts. And for a lot of these offers, I haven't really thought that they were bad.
Okay.
I've actually thought that they've been pretty good. But for me, when I'm telling them don't accept the first offer, it's like, okay, this is a starting point. And thankfully, your starting point is pretty good. But that doesn't mean that we can't make some improvements. And I usually tell them before you sign is usually when you have the most leverage. When an organization clearly wants you because they extended you an offer, they're probably going to be much more willing to make some concessions to you than they would if you already worked for that organization. And so I usually tell them, again, the statistics show most employers are expecting you to negotiate. And it may not be a negotiation on salary. Maybe there are other things that we can negotiate, or at the bare minimum, some points of clarity that we need to get out there on the table before you sign with this organization. And so I'll give them my initial thoughts. And then one of my first questions to them will always be, what improvements do you want to make? How does this look to you? Are you okay with this? Because what may be okay for me may not be okay for you. So it's not about what I want and what I think. It's about what you want and what you think. And let's help to see, okay, what are some improvements? What are some things that you need in order to make your life better?
Well, I love that you're able to balance your perspective with their perspective. Also acknowledging that you've been in the game a little bit longer. You know about money, you know about negotiating contracts. Clearly, that's why they're emailing you. Because I think, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but for many residents who are applying to their first job, some of them are just happy to be getting an actual salary, right? They've been underpaid for 3+ years, and now they're excited to get an actual salary. And that's where I was when I applied for my first job. I didn't negotiate. Really, I got, I think, a travel bonus or a travel stipend for moving, but I think that was about all that I asked for. Now, the second time around, I did a little bit better than that, right? Because I had some experience. And so while you're balancing, okay, what do you want? How do you like this? How does this look to you? I'm sure if they're like me, they're like, it looks good to me. I'm making 6 figures. It looks good. But I'm happy that you're there to help them to buffer their excitement with what should be expected and what they should be paid based upon your experience.
Yeah. And one of the things I've tried to create is this foster of transparency within the residency program, because I think that we all elevate and do better when we all are aware of what other people are getting. Some people are willing to share a little bit more than others, or willing to share more with me than they would maybe their co-residents. But I have tried to really foster that environment. And I've said, hey, we are all going to get a lot better and get paid even more fairly when we know what each other is getting. Because a lot of the residents are interviewing at similar places in the city. And so it's like, okay, if we know organization A gave you this offer, then let's bring that to organization B and see if they're willing to match it. And even if I had a resident that maybe didn't interview at both places, you now have an idea of what another organization is willing to offer. And so you can come to the negotiating table with more confidence and with more leverage. And so those are some of the things I've tried to talk to them about, and also really emphasize that it's not just about the money. I obviously care about money. I want my residents and soon to be attendings to feel like they are compensated very, very well. So I always say this, I work better when I'm paid well, and so do most people. And if you get to work and you feel underpaid, it is going to be hard to stay in that job. It's going to be hard to feel satisfied, and you're going to be looking to leave. I really want people to feel like they are paid well. And so even though you may be experiencing a pay increase from when you were in training, that feeling is going to fade very quickly if you realize that you're getting paid significantly less than somebody else doing similar work. I really want them to make sure that they're paid well, and to also craft careers that they desire. I mentioned it's not just about the money, because I think if you ask a lot of experienced professionals, whether they're in medicine or not, they'll tell you one of the things that they want the most is time, flexibility, and autonomy over their schedule, especially when folks start having kids and creating families of their own, or just needing to take care of extended family. Oftentimes their priorities shift. And so it's also me talking to them and saying, all right, I don't need to know all your business, but are you somebody who knows that you want to be home a little bit more with your kids, with your spouse, with your family? And how can we craft this job so that you get that? And I've really been working with them and saying, hey, are you somebody who really wants a 4-day work week? And just letting them know that that is possible. You got to talk about it, and you have to advocate for yourself. Yes, this may be the standard, but see if they can be flexible on this, right? Because they may be willing to, because they want you to work for them so bad. And so it's really some of those conversations that I think have been eye-opening to them. And I've been pleasantly surprised at what a lot of them have been able to get.
Well, Leisha, all of that you just said reminds me of our coaching program, Boost, and our client, Kayla. Shout out to Kayla. We're going to have her on the podcast, that we helped to get all of those things. Like, she came to us because she's a new mom, and she's like, yeah, I want to have more time with my family, and I want to do more of the work that I want to do. And through our coaching program, we were able to help her to get all of those things. She got an increase in her salary. She got a better schedule. She got more OR time where she loved operating, and she was one of the surgeons who could do specific types of surgery. She was even helping her colleagues. So all that you said about it's more than the money. Yes, it's both and. We want a higher salary because the money helps us. And we want to make sure that we can have time freedom, because as our life evolves, there are going to be shifting priorities, and we give ourselves space to shift those priorities without the burnout. So yes, I'm over here snapping, nodding my head like, oh my gosh, and just thinking about Kayla and all the success that she had.
Yeah, it's so funny, because I think she initially came to us because she really wanted to start a side gig and just knew that she wanted some changes in her main job. And so it's so funny, because I don't even know if getting a raise was high on her priority list, because I think that when she came to us, she didn't really think that that was possible, or she was doubting whether or not it was possible, and she was sort of trying to tamper her expectations. And so she went from, I would like these things, they seem far-fetched, to, oh, I got these things. It's so funny. When she first started, her husband was like, are you sure you want to join this thing? And now her husband's like, oh yeah, I like this. We're bringing in more money to the family, have more flexibility. Really happy to see Kayla get that win. And if you are listening and you would like some assistance negotiating your contract, advocating for yourself to get a raise, check out Boost Part 1, Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator. That will be starting very soon. We'll put the link in the show notes for you to sign up for our wait list. But we also want you to create the schedule that you desire and to get paid in a way that matches all the value that you bring to your organization. And so if you're interested in that, click the link in the show notes. We're happy to help you out. As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income. because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long-term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
All right, Leisha. Well, I think that is a great segue to what we want to talk about today is renegotiating your contract. And I love that you put this together for us because, as you mentioned, the best time to negotiate is before you accept the role, the position. But what if you've been there? Like, I've been at my job now for almost 6 years, and you're starting to feel some of that burnout. You're starting to feel like you're underpaid. You're seeing these residents coming in, making a little bit more money than you expected that they gonna make. And you too desire more. So please enlighten us, give us the breakdown on what are some of the steps, approaches that you use to renegotiate your contract.
I'm glad you asked because I think that this is the best time to do so. I mentioned in the teaser that it's approaching the end of the fiscal year for a lot of us. For some people who are not in medicine, maybe the end of the fiscal calendar aligns with the regular calendar, where maybe your job's end of the fiscal year is at the end of December. But for a lot of us who work in medicine, the end of the fiscal year is actually in June. So it's halfway through the year. It's usually starting July 1st is when the next fiscal year starts. And what that means is when one fiscal year is ending and the other one is starting, there's usually a new budget. And so each department will submit a budget to the dean or the person in charge, and that budget may or may not get approved, may or may not be sent back with some changes, and then it sort of goes forth until the next year. And what I find is that a lot of physicians may realize they're underpaid or come to the realization that they deserve a raise, want to get paid more, and they'll try to meet with their bosses, and they'll sort of state their case, do a little mini negotiation, and try to get their boss on their side to give them a raise. And oftentimes, if you have these meetings and it is not around the time that it's the end of the fiscal year, your boss may reply and say something along the lines of, it's not in the budget. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get a raise if the person that I need the raise from is telling me there's no money there? And one of the keys is to do so around the end of the fiscal year, right? Do so around the time that your boss is submitting their budget for the next year. Because if you do it around this time, there's often a lot more negotiating power. There's a lot more leeway. And so you have a higher chance in getting that raise that you deserve. But if you've not broached this topic before, it can be a little daunting and a little difficult to sort of go into your boss's office the day before they need to submit their budget and say, I want a raise. So this is something that you need to be strategic about as you're doing it. But I do think, like you said, there's a lot of folks listening to this that are like, hey, Leisha, I'm not a resident. I'm somebody who's been at my job for a while. Maybe I'm not even in medicine, but I still want some tips. And I think right now is just a great time to really set yourself up to get the raise and get the career changes that you desire.
I love what you just said. It's not just about the ask, it's about asking at the appropriate time. So if you are someone who's not in medicine, or even if you are in medicine and you don't know what is the fiscal cycle, the beginning and the end of your employer, so you want to first do a little research to better understand that so you can appropriately time your ask. And ideally, your boss will have open ears to already be thinking about this topic and can help you to get more of what you want without posing, oh, it's not in the budget as an objection. So, Alicia, I'm so glad that you brought that to light because a lot of times we just ask when we feel like we want to ask, but we want to really be strategic about when we ask. So now we know that this is the right time. My boss is thinking about this, but I don't really know what I want. Like, what would be the next step?
So I always tell people first, before you ask somebody to do something for you, whether it's give you more money or change your schedule in a way that is in your favor, you need to figure out where do you stand with your boss and with the people who have the power to give you the raise and the changes that you want. One of the things that we talk about in our accelerator and that I definitely will teach people and coach people through is figuring out where you stand first. You want to turn your boss into an advocate for you. You're much more likely to get the raise you want, to get the schedule you want, to get the career changes that you want when your boss wants to actually give it to you. So you got to turn your boss into an advocate. And in order to do that, you need to figure out where you stand with her or with him. That usually means having some pre meetings before you even talk about the idea of negotiation, before you even talk about a raise, and really talking with your boss and getting a sense of what their opinion of your work is. Are you meeting expectations? Not because you think you're meeting expectations, but your boss thinks you're meeting them. Are you doing the things that your boss has hired you to do? Are you doing those things well? Do they think that you are exceeding expectations? Those are the things that you want to find out, because you may think you're doing well, but maybe your boss feels differently. You may think that you've got the best patient satisfaction or customer satisfaction. Meanwhile, your boss is like, she's not seeing enough patients or she's not seeing enough clients. She's not bringing in enough money. So you really need to figure out where you stand with your boss and make sure that they view you favorably. A part of also understanding where you stand is also making it clear about the things that you have done and the things that you will do. No one wants to pay somebody more money to do the same work. It takes a really skilled negotiator in order to do that. And so when I'm coaching people through that, I usually tell them, hey, remind your boss of all the things that you've been doing, because your boss knows probably big picture, but they may not be watching you on a day-to-day basis. So they may not be aware of all of the projects that you've done, all the committees you're on, all of the positive changes that you brought about to the organization. Maybe that's in the form of more money, more clients, more customers, more patients, but maybe it's in the form of more marketing dollars, more brand awareness, more research, more whatever, teaching and mentorship. Figuring out where you stand, having that meeting with your boss, making sure that they view you favorably, reminding them of all of the work that you've done and all of the things that you can do.
Okay, I love this first step because it requires that we take a moment of reflection and one internally to understand what we've done, to document those things that we've done, to think about, okay, how they actually have benefited the organization as a whole. It requires us to now understand objectively where we stand, how our boss perceives us, how do we compare against our colleagues, what are the expectations, and where do we stand with those expectations? And honestly, most people don't know. Most people do not know. And so to make this as a first step is a great first step because it's not only going to help you with this negotiation, but it will also help you in future negotiations to just understand what is current state. Because it's really hard to improve something if you don't know what metrics you're actually improving. And I'm sure you're going to take us through other targets, but one of the things that you said is like, what else would you do for the organization? If you don't know what you've done, it's really important that we understand where we are in order for us to be able to articulate how we're going to move in the future and how we're going to help the organization in the future. I really appreciate that this is a first step because honestly, 90% of people don't know this information.
Yeah. And on top of that, just two clarifying points. Sometimes you've done great things and you're telling your boss, but you're not putting it in the spaces, in the places, in the programs, in the systems where they can see it. I'll give you an example. At my job, they have this new portal where we're supposed to put in anytime we teach, anytime we publish a research study, anytime we write a grant, it needs to go into this system. And it's actually what my boss and my boss's boss use to determine, are we meeting expectations? Who's doing outstanding work? Because what they find is employees like to tell their boss, but their boss is human and forget. And sometimes when your boss is in these meetings, they may not remember all of the things that you told them. But if it's written down in a system where everybody can see it, when she goes to talk about you to her colleagues or advocate for more money for her department or his department, they can pull up that system, that portal, and just have a list of the things that you've done. I will encourage you to see if there's a system like that at your organization where all of that stuff needs to be inputted. And if there is not, one of the things that I did for my boss is I actually created my own Word doc. And it was different from my resume. I didn't want to give my boss my resume. I felt like she'd look at it and go, why are you giving this to me? But I gave her a document where it kind of listed all of the things that I had done since I'd been hired. And I listed every talk that I'd given, every grant that I'd applied for. I listed the meetings and the presentations that I've done on a national scale, on an international scale. I listed some of these intangibles. I talked about the committees that I was on and how much work I was putting into those committees. I listed all the mentorship duties that I was doing. And as I started listing stuff and remembering stuff, articles that I had written, that list got really long and I'd organized it by category. And I remember when I met with my boss, I gave that to her and she said, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. I didn't know you were doing all of this. And so then it just gave her more ammunition. So then when I did ask her for the raise, right, and I did try to negotiate a raise, she knew that I deserved it. And so she wanted to give it to me. And so when she was in those meetings, she was like, hey, I got this doctor here. We can't lose her. We need to make sure that we pay her more. And that's the space you want to be in. Let me tell you, put your stuff into this portal and I will give give another quick caveat is sometimes we think when we're saying, oh, you need to show your boss what you will do, that doesn't mean joining more committees and signing up for more unpaid work. It just means telling them where you'd like to take the committee you're on, what you'd like to do with the work that you're already doing. Currently, I'm doing this with the residents. I know that we can get there. So reminding them of the shared goals that you have and the progress that you've made towards reaching them. So this is kind of all a part of knowing where you stand, meeting with your boss, making sure that they have the tools that they need to advocate you when the time comes. And that also means, of course, writing that stuff down for them.
Dropping gems, Dr. Taylor. I love that you sweetened the deal and you gave them a list. You don't know? You don't know what I've done? Let me tell you. Let me document it. So just in case you forget, you can pull the Word doc up. It also helps you to keep that running list when you have to update your CV or when you're negotiating again. And another thing that we sometimes undervalue how much this means to the institution, the work that we're doing, because that list that you provided your boss helps them to recruit. Oh, well, we have a doctor here who is doing all of these things. And when they're recruiting a new hire, then that new hire can see the potential of themselves at the organization. So just because you're winning and doing these things, don't undervalue that your success is just for you, because your institution will leverage your success to bring on someone else who is a great candidate. So Dr. Taylor, girl, you've given us all the good stuff. Take us to step number 2.
Step 2 is identifying who has the power to give you the raise or the changes that you want. Because sometimes it's not your immediate boss. I mentioned in step 1, making your boss an advocate, because oftentimes your boss can't just approve the budget that he or she wants. It has to go through another approval process. It has to be submitted to the board of trustees or the C-suite and what have you. And so your boss may want to give you a raise, but they may not have the power to. So you need to identify who has the power, who's in charge here, who can make that final decision. And if you're not aware, ask your boss. I usually say something along the lines of, hey, Dr. So-and-so, or hey, so-and-so, it seems like you think that I'm doing great work here. And I can sense that you also believe that, I should be paid more, or that you want to make sure that my compensation reflects the value that I bring here at this organization. What are our next steps? And I just leave it open-ended. What are our next steps? Oh, it needs to be approved by this person or that person. That's a very subtle way of asking who has the power to approve this thing. What are our next steps? When should we meet again? Sometimes when I find out what those next steps are, oh, it needs to be approved by this person or this committee, I will say, what do you think they're looking for? And again, they're problem solving. They're giving me the information. Oh, well, they probably need this, or they're probably going to say this. And I'll say, all right, how can we overcome that? I'm letting my boss be the problem solver here. So identifying who has the power, and that's a way of sort of asking it, is just simply saying, what are our next steps? When can we expect this to be approved? Those sorts of things I think are very, very helpful, because you want to make sure that you are putting your boss in a position to succeed so that he or she can put you in a position to succeed.
So you are the sweet talker over there. And if you all did not write down that phrase, you definitely should just rewind this episode just a little bit and get your pens and paper out. And Leisha, what I love about our program, Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator, is that we have equipped them with a script. If your boss says this, then you can say this. If your boss says this, then you can say this. So you don't have to think about, are these effective words that we're using? We know that these phrases are effective, and it helps you to navigate various situations as you are doing this negotiation thing. So identifying who has the power, using those phrases to gather information in a way that is tactful, in a way that benefits you and the organization, is a solid next move. And I just really love that script. I review it, sometimes when I am helping other people to navigate this, and then also just having conversations with my husband about opportunities, because it's not only about this single opportunity, right? Negotiation occurs in various phases of our lives, and there are always other opportunities to negotiate. And those phrases have come in like clutch. So what is step number 3?
Step 3 is to see how your current pay or package stacks up to other people. Because sometimes we think we want this until we hear about something else. We're like, oh, actually, I want that. And so you want to start to get a sense for how what you have compares to other people. And you can be careful with this, because sometimes you're really happy and then you hear about something else. Comparison is the thief of joy. And so you want to make sure that you're being mindful of that. But usually, I use this for my residents, and I will say, talk to each other. Again, we all come up better we all end up better when we know what other offers are out there, because maybe your ask is too small. Maybe you could ask for a lot more than you think you can. Maybe you could have a lot more flexibility than you think you can. And so we'll talk about in a second about some of the things to negotiate, but you want to really understand what is market rate for your specialty, for someone with your level of experience and expertise, kind of see what's possible for you. I'm all about helping people create the lives that they desire. And I recognize that I may desire something different from somebody else, but sometimes just listening and hearing what's out there really helps me to define what I want a little bit more. And so I want you to take the time, talk to other people, and see what's possible for you.
I know that we have listeners who are male, female, and non binary. And so I'm not making this statement to exclude anyone. But, Leisha, I think that that is really important. The statement that you made is sometimes you're not asking for enough. Sometimes your ask is too little. And the data shows that women do not ask for enough. And so doing this comparison is really revealing of, oh my gosh, they're making this and I'm only making this. Because sometimes when we want to negotiate, we come with our own baggage, our own trauma, our own history to that negotiation table. And we want you to feel confident and validated. And one of the ways that you can validate your ask is just knowing that you're not really asking for excessive amounts of money or schedules or what have you, because comparatively, you're just asking for what other people have. And so just to ensure pay equity. And I also love the transparency that you mentioned. We can all win. Just because I'm making this doesn't mean that you have to make less than this. Like, let's share this information so that we can all win. We have done our comparison. We understand where we stack up. We've already identified who has the power and what the next steps are. And we've written down our evidence list of everything that we've done. We've looked at the expectations of our boss to make sure that we've met those expectations and exceeded some of those expectations. What do we do now?
Now you take some time and you pinpoint the changes you want to make. What are the changes you want to make? And it may be an increase in salary. It may be a change to your schedule. It may be some other levels of flexibility that you desire in your career, but pinpoint the changes you want to make and prioritize them. What matters most to you? Because I think that that will also refine how you make your offer and how you structure your offer. You know, it's easy to say, oh, we're negotiating, so I just want more money, more money, more money. But if you boil that down, sometimes people are like, you know what, Leisha, actually, would I like more money? Yes, who wouldn't? But what I'd like more is more time with my family. If I had more time with my family, then I could actually stay in this job longer. If I could cut down to part-time, I could actually see myself here for many more years instead of feeling like I need to leave. You know, if I could take off when I want to take off, I could actually see myself being happier here. And so whether it is restrictions around paid time off, whether it is a schedule that doesn't leave enough room for flexibility for your family, whether it is a salary that is below market value, really pinpointing the changes that you want to make. And remember, now that you've talked to other people, you can use their offers as leverage.
So it's not only about the money. And honestly, I could say that that's when I have renegotiated, the time piece was the most critical part for me. And it's not only about time, but also the type of work that I'm doing, because there is some work that drains me and drains my family. When I would have to do 14-day stretches and just seeing patients who are sick, having to think. I think all the time. But you know, when you're in the hospital in an acute care setting and you have this patient who is crashing and burning, or this patient who is not fitting your illness script, it requires a different level of your brain capacity. And doing that for 14 days straight would exhaust me, right? So now I'm thinking about not only the money, but what is the type of work that I enjoy doing? What is the type of work that energizes me? What is the type of work that drains me? And how can I find a little bit more balance in my work schedule and mix so that it helps me to achieve these other goals? Because when I'm working 14 days straight in the hospital, I'm exhausted. I don't have time to play with my kids. My husband's like, hey, where you at? I'm like, I'm in the bed. I'm sorry. I'm tired. So just making sure that you're prioritizing not only money, as you mentioned, but some of the other aspects of your life that are just or if not more important than the work that we do as healthcare providers or the work that you do in your industry.
Yeah, and I think now is probably a good time to kind of talk about some of those things that we can negotiate. So we talked about pay, but when we break down pay, it's just about how you want to get paid. Is it a set salary no matter how much work you do? Do you want to get paid partially based on productivity? Is it a larger bonus? What are some improvements that you can make to your pay structure? Your schedule, maybe it's assumed in your field that you do 5 days a week, but maybe you want to work 4 days a week. And that's a negotiation thing that you can advocate for. I think I told this story in the podcast before, but I remember at my organization, when we were opening up a new clinic, we needed physicians to fill that new clinic. And the new physicians that we wanted to hire, they both wanted 4-day work weeks. And the organization said, sure, instead of each of you working 5 days, 8 hours a day, you'll each work 4 days and work 10-hour days, right? And so we increased the patient access hours, which they really liked. And now each of them have a day completely off. One of them has every Monday off, the other one has every Friday off, and they both love their schedule. And what we've realized is it's going to keep them at that job longer, right? And so because they only work 4 days a week, they're a lot happier. They get to spend much needed time with their family. They have a complete day off during the week to get things that they need to get done. And they seem really, really happy there. And so I'm glad we were able to make that work for them. But sometimes it's schedule, and it's not even just, what I'm thinking of outpatient schedules. I have a friend who's an OBGYN. I remember talking with her before she signed her offer. And she said, Leisha, I have the best schedule now. And I'm so happy for her because what she realized is, Leisha, I actually can work 24-hour shifts. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is having to work 24-hour shifts and then do a bunch of clinic and then being on call and then doing all of those other things. She has a 24-hour shift once a week. She has that post-call day and she has about 3 half days in clinic, and she can stack those 3 half days however she wants. And so usually she ends up having a day and a half off in the middle of each week. She rarely works weekends and she loves her job. She's like, I get the best mix. I get to deliver some when I'm in the hospital on call. I see some patients in clinic, and then I have a lot of free time in the middle of the week. She absolutely loves her schedule as an OBGYN. And it's interesting because I know other OBGYNs who hate their life, who hate their schedules, right? They're always on call. They have way more call days than she does. They have way more clinic duties than she does, and they never feel like there's enough hours in the day. And so I was just really happy for my friend that she was able to advocate for the schedule that she wants and still gets paid really well for that schedule. Along the lines of schedule, it's also daily hours. Maybe you're happy with your schedule in terms of the days that you work, but you want to switch the hours. I have some colleagues who say, Alicia, one of the things that's really important to me is I want to be off by a certain time to pick my kids up from daycare. And if I could just get out in time to pick my kids up from daycare, I could stay at this job longer. And so I know at our clinic, we've actually changed some of the hours where instead of it being the standard, 8 to 5, we're starting to open the clinic up earlier on some days for the physicians who want to work earlier or start their day earlier. And we've also extended some hours for the physicians who, they need a later start in order to get things done, and they're willing to work a little bit longer in the afternoon or in the early evenings. And so we've just basically extended our hours again to create some of that flexibility. And so I just want to give some examples of that because I think there are lots of different options for ways that you can change your schedule or change your pay to best fit your life.
I really love those examples. And I think that they are so critical for us to think about, okay, what else do we need and how can we create a work-life balance? It's never going to be in complete balance. I think integration is a better term. However, we can sometimes be myopic in our asks. This at least affords you an opportunity to think about how can you create more space, because the biggest threat to your career is burnout. And so you want to ensure the longevity of your career by asking for the things that you need. And oftentimes it's that we're not asking for the right things, or we're just not asking in general, that leads to that feeling of burnout, that we can't do this, that, oh, I need to switch careers, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes just expressing what it is that you need and thinking about your life and your career as one package from a holistic perspective.
I love that. Brittany, I'm reminded of what you told me in your last negotiation about some of the things that were important to you in terms of, hey, Leisha, I need to be closer to home. I can't go and drive to these clinics that are far away from home because I need to be able to pick up my kids. I need to be able to be home by a certain time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brittany, but I think location was one of the things that you really wanted. And then in terms of daily admin time and teaching duties, right? And saying, all right, I'm willing to help out more with the residents. I'm willing to join this committee or that committee. But in exchange, I need more admin time. And so for you, it was some of those other intangibles that really made the job a better fit for you.
Definitely. The travel, as you all may know, I have a 28-year-old car and it has 80,000 miles on it. That's because I don't drive, right? So to drive an hour away and an hour back, it was just not worth my time. And even though that shift provided more money, when I broke it down, but per hour, including the time, it actually was not that much more. You want to really factor in the time and the energy piece. And you're right, Leisha, those changes to my schedule and my package when I was thinking about negotiation added more value than the dollars, honestly, because now I get to show up in a different way to my family, which makes the world of difference.
And, there are also some of these other intangibles that you and I have kind of talked about offline, which is intellectual property, owning your inventions, owning the things that you create. For some people, that level of autonomy is really important. Maybe you're like us and you're wanting to start a side gig or be an entrepreneur, or you've got this great idea for an invention or a product or a service. Oftentimes, if you work for some of these organizations, there's a clause in the contract that says they own a percentage of that. If you speak at other organizations and you make money on the side, then they are entitled to a percentage of that money that you make. And so for a lot of physicians, it was, I need to get that intellectual property clause in my contract renegotiated or removed. And that is what mattered the most to them. For other people, it was that non-compete. Hey, I need to have the ability to change organization should I need to for family reasons or other obligations. And so removing that non-compete clause was really important. For other physicians, it was, hey, I'm terrified of being sued. I want to make sure that I am only responsible for my own medical decision making. And so it was them choosing not to supervise other non-physician providers. It's just really about what are the things that matter the most to you. And again, organizing them by priority.
And I can see that intellectual property is not something that I initially thought about. Thinking about these things as you are negotiating or renegotiating, even if it's not in your immediate future, could be helpful, or at least understanding that process, because we never know where we will end up. And in our coaching program, Boost, we help people to discover their passions and to monetize their passions and to make profitable businesses. That might be something that you desire to do. And if you are coming to the negotiation table, at least understanding that process of how do you get these clauses and these addendums to your contract to protect your intellectual property will give you the freedom to start to be creative about other ways to diversify your income. So, Leisha, that all sounds good of all the things that we can negotiate. So now we have an idea of if we want more money, of course, ask for it, a different schedule. If we want different types of work, a different location, intellectual property rights, and things of that nature, then we should ask for those. So we have identified the changes. What is the next step?
The next step is to articulate your value, advocate for yourself. This is where you negotiate. And a part of negotiation is having a little bit of curiosity and being able to ask the right questions, make the right statements in the right manner, but also reminding them of the benefit of keeping you instead of losing you. And so it's not an empty threat. It's just a reminder of the benefit of retention over attrition. Whenever organizations lose a valuable employee, it costs them money. So then you leaving, attrition, which is employees leaving their current organization, that costs the organization money. It costs them in the form of lost productivity from the time that you leave. It costs them in terms of now they've got to invest into recruiting a new person. It costs them in terms of the time it takes to recruit and hire and train and credential a new person, all that lost revenue. And then even when they hire somebody, there's still a ramping up period for the new hire. That's a lot of lost money for the organization, for the business. Reminding them of that, reminding them of, hey, oftentimes I know that it costs the organization more money to lose employees to attrition than it is to invest in retention. In our program, we talk about the right way to say that and some different ways that you can say that in an effective manner.
Yeah, because that sounds threatening.
Exactly. And so you want to make sure that you are non-threatening. We talk about how exactly to do that in our coaching program, but it's reminding them of that benefit, because when organizations are reminded of the benefit of retention, oftentimes they can find more money for you. Oftentimes they can meet you where you are. Oftentimes, even at the bare minimum, maybe they can offer you a retention bonus so that you don't leave if they can't always make some increases to your base salary. And so there's different ideas, creative ideas and ways that we talk about that you can get more money or get some of the things that you're negotiating. But again, it's all about articulating your value, helping the organization see that it is better for them if you stay.
I'm so happy that you brought this up because I sit on one of the committees that reviews the proposal for new hires. And when we're mapping out the expected return on investment for this new hire, that first year, it's a negative because you have this ramp up phase. You don't expect that the new hire is just going to come in and be able to see the same caseload as someone who is senior who really knows the system. So keeping you in that role and in that position definitely saves the institution money. I can tell you objectively, it is something that they think about and they plan for when they're hiring someone new. So, like Leisha said, we teach you how to say it tactfully, skillfully, without it sounding threatening, but that is the truth. And the institutions are aware of that. But there's no problem in reminding them of that point and using that as leverage so that you can actually get what you want. Because whenever we're negotiating things, sometimes we come from this position that, oh, they're giving me more money, or they're giving me a better schedule, or they're giving me. No, they are not giving you, right? You are offering your services to them. And this is a win-win situation. And when you view it from that vantage point, then you feel more empowered to identify how you're going to benefit the organization and how you can serve your organization better while serving yourself. So this is definitely win-win. These steps that we've gone through have really helped us to identify and be true to ourselves while helping the organization. So thank you for allowing us to see this from a win-win perspective.
Yep, yep. And so again, this is the time for you to advocate for yourself. This is the time for you to renegotiate your work contract. Find out when the end of the fiscal year is for your organization. And if it is coming up, then now's the time to meet with your boss. Figure out where you stand. Identify who has the power to give you that raise. See how your current pay package compares to others, right? Talk to your colleagues, pinpoint the changes you want to make and prioritize them, and then come to the negotiation table equipped with the confidence and the skill that you need to get the raise and the career changes that you desire. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you. And again, we've got our Boost Part 1 Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator. If you're someone who's like, Leisha and Brittany, this sounds great, but I need some help. I want to know those scripts. I want to know what I should say back and forth. I need some assistance with this. We are happy to help you out. We'll put a link in the show notes on how you can sign up for our wait list for that program so that you can be equipped, like we said, with the skills and the confidence that you need to get the raise that you deserve.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback. One of the things that Kayla said, and one of the things that I really love in the program is the ability to practice. You can listen to this episode, document all of the things, but still not feel confident. You know the what, but it's really having that skill set of doing it in real time and a safe space, being able to do that again and again. And I think that that was a game changer for our client, for her to actually have to say the phrases out loud in a situation where she didn't know what was coming next, and for us to be able to give her that feedback into practice again and again. If you are interested, definitely click the link in the show notes to sign up for our wait list. For our client, she got 5 times her return on investment with all of the objective salary increase. But who's to say, with the schedule and the time that she's going to get back and more fulfillment, like those are the intangibles that are priceless. So definitely you'll get a return on your investment, if not just in the money, but also in the confidence, which was a huge, huge advantage and benefit for our client going through this program. All right. Well, Leisha, let's talk about some fun money. What are you doing fun with money?
Well, I'm always planning trips. I feel like that's my thing, to plan a trip. And so I am currently thinking about, what do I want to do around my birthday? My birthday is towards the end of June. It's June 20th. I was trying to think, what do I want to do? I am not one of those people, surprisingly, who has to travel on my birthday. Usually I'm fine being around family and friends. I love being around people who love me. Usually I will plan a bunch of activities in the city to do with my friends and my family. But this year I was actually thinking about taking a trip. And the reason is because, as I mentioned on this episode, it's the end of the fiscal year. And at my organization, vacation days do not roll over. It's use it or lose it. And thankfully, we got an increase in vacation days this year. And so I have some days to use. And so I was thinking about taking that last week of June off and going somewhere. And so one of the places that is on my list is Tokyo. I've actually been to Japan before, but I was there for like a very long layover. So I was there during the day for about 8 hours. I saw some really cool things, but I didn't really get a chance to explore the city in the way that I would have liked. And so I am strongly considering going to Tokyo. Preemptively looked at some hotels that, of course, I'm going to book on points. And so I'm like, ooh, maybe I can make this work. So if I can find some good flight deals, I might be in Japan in the end of June.
Love that. You'll have to do a screen recording and narrate the process of when you're looking for your flight deals. This is what I look for. This is what I do, because that would help me out. I mean, that could be a podcast in itself, right? Take me with you, share your itinerary. We want to know all of the details, because I too want to go to Japan and really do it as cheaply as I can without it being a cheap trip. So more affordably. Well, similar to you, I am using my money for experiences conferences as well. My husband and I are on our way to Vegas. I'm presenting at the Society of Hospital Medicine Conference, 3 Keys to Financial Wellness, of what they didn't teach you in medical school. So I'm really excited to be presenting again. And my husband is coming with me. Whenever I go to these conferences, I like to reconnect with my people from Emory and WashU and Northwestern. There's a group of hospitalists from Emory who are going to Cirque du Soleil. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I think that's how you pronounce the show. And we're going to be tagging along. So this is going to be a spectacular performance. I'm sure I've seen all the videos of the acrobatics and the effects and the music and the dancing. So I'm excited, and I'm glad that there's going to be so much light, so many lights and entertainment, because it is at 9:30 Vegas time, which shoot, I'm typically in the bed at that time. So I will need a coffee before, but I'm really excited to connect with others and to be able to be entertained.
Ooh, that's exciting. Take photos. I can't wait to see. And I'm happy that your husband's going with you. It's like you get the best of both worlds, to bond with some colleagues that you really like and also have your husband there for support and entertainment, all the things. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Well, this episode has been really fun, and we just hope that you feel empowered to negotiate your first or renegotiate your current contract with your employer, and that you got some tools to do that. And again, if you're interested in really feeling this confidence, knowing with certainty that you're using the phrases that are effective, then click the link in our show notes to sign up for our wait list for our Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator, because we want you to win and we can all win together. Until next time, stay wealth minded. Hello, and thank you for listening to our podcast. And because of that, we have something for you, our Wealthy Minds Blueprint.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I could be better with money? Do you want to start investing and saving for retirement, but keep delaying because you don't know where to start? Our Wealthy Minds Blueprint is here to help.
This guide will teach you what you didn't learn in your training, so you can stop being confused about money and start taking what we call wealthy-minded action.
We'll help you become a master of your finances and simplify investing so you can get started today. Take control of your financial future by downloading your free copy of the Wealthy Minds Blueprint now and start building the wealth you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Pradeep Otto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.